I'm so tired to see. Relax. I can't breathe my face. Just get up. What do you want? I can't breathe. Please, the knee in my neck. I can't breathe shit. Bro, get up, get in the car, man. I will. Get up, get in the car. I can't move. I've been fighting the whole fight, man. Get up, get in the car. Get up and get in the car, right? I can't. Can't get y'all out of doing to get in, bro. I told you, you can't win. My knee. You can't win, man. I'm through. I know you're in that, but you didn't listen. That's for me. My stomach hurts. My dick hurts. Everything hurts. There's water for me. Please. Please. I can't breathe.
George Perry Floyd Jr., born October 14th, 1973, in North Carolina, raised in the Cunny homes in the Third Way of Houston, Texas. He attended Yates High School, where he played on both the basketball team and the football team. He helped his team win the Texas State Championship. After he graduated, he spent 5 years in prison for armed robbery. When he got out in 2014, he became involved with the Resurrection Houston, a local ministry. That same year, he moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was the father of 5 children, ages ranging from 6 to 22. He was working security up until 2020, when he lost his job because of COVID-19, like a lot of us. On May 25th of 2020, the police were called on him due to suspicion of a counterfeit $20 bill. It's unclear how he ended up in this position, on the ground, with a police officer's knee on his neck. But that was the situation he found himself in. He cried out for his mother. He pleaded that he couldn't breathe, repeatedly. He asked for water. His cries were unanswered. Officer Derek Chauvin kept his knee on his neck for a full 9 minutes, while 4 other officers watched and did nothing to intervene. They seemed unconcerned about the fact that they were being filmed, unconcerned about the crowd that was pleading with him to get off his neck. Eventually, he lost consciousness. An ambulance arrived and placed his unmoving body into the ambulance. Upon arriving to the hospital, he was pronounced dead. The scene was so blatant, so beyond the pale, so in your face, that no one could deny that this was a gross miscarriage of justice. There was no question, even among my most right-wing friends, that this was a crime, that this was murder. There was no question that these officers needed to be fired and charged and hopefully jailed. In reaction to Floyd's death, protests cropped up all over the nation, and that was where the agreement ended for many. The officers were charged. Why isn't that enough? because many do not understand that this is not an isolated incident. This happens all the time. There are many George Floyds. And then the looting and rioting started, alienating some people from the cause who would otherwise be allies. However, some people question the validity of the riots. Some believe it's undercover cops performing the violence. The powers that be know that more than a few people will be turned off by the violence. The powers that be want to keep us divided. Imagine, though, if the violence were real. Imagine the pain and hurt people must feel to perform such actions. How deep must that pain run? Most don't even come close to trying, to being able to extend empathy, to try to understand. The police are responding in some quarters to protests of police brutality with more police brutality.
Officers came out. We don't know what happened, but they pinned the girl to the floor. When they pinned her, they put their knee in her back of her neck. At that point, a few protesters out here went to go try to break it up, and it's turned into this. We've been hit with so many flashbangs and so much tear gas, rubber bullets everywhere, and just for no reason at all.
How are you feeling? Are you hurt? Are you okay?
My face is on fire. It is worse than in basic training when they send you through the gas chamber, but it's not a reason to leave right now. I gotta stay here because what they're doing is wrong.
I remember you telling us at 6 o'clock that you're a veteran, that you came back to this country and you felt that what's going on is unfair. Tell me about how things were at Romeo Bearden Park to how things have turned into at this moment right now, just a few hours later.
Honestly, when we got over here, it was peaceful. We actually went back to Ramir Bearden Park and then came back down here. here. We were out here talking to the volunteer police team that like comes out and handles these things. I don't know how the riot team come out here. They came from down this street. They didn't even come from the police house or nothing. They came from down this street and came up behind us. So it immediately incited fear. It immediately incited yelling. There were people throwing water bottles, and in return from the water bottles, we got rubber bullet and a lot of tear gas to the face.
How do you feel about that? How does that make you feel?
I mean, if you look at my Facebook Live, like everyone was really scared of me. It looked scared for me because like the flashbang went literally past my face and burnt my ear. I have bruises all over me right now, and I'm standing on a sidewalk. Like, I'm not doing anything. It's just amazing that I can pay taxes in this city. I can live in this city. I can fight for my country. But they do this to us with no, like there's no basis, and they don't talk to us.
If CMPD could hear you right now, what would you say to them?
They heard us today. I told the captain here that we need to bridge the gap. We need to talk. This is not helping. This just makes us feel even more like less valued, make us feel more like less of a person. Trust me, they hear us. They don't want to hear us. Like somebody asked me today, like, oh, we have a black chief, we have a black fire chief, we have a black district attorney. Well, then be black. Don't be your job. What are you doing to protect us? When are you standing up and saying, this is my city, these are my people? Why are you letting the riot team come out and flashbang us? Why are you letting the riot team tear gas us? What are we doing wrong? Where are we not being peaceful? Because you know what? When I wake up in the morning, the news is going to say that we were rioting. They were going to say we're inciting. I don't see any incitement. We were standing out here peacefully. Why come out in riot gear? Like, it's just pointless. Even soldiers who go across seas don't get to do what they're doing. I don't think they expected this. I think they thought because they were white organized.
Watch it. Flash thing. It's going off. Are you?
Yeah, there's one behind you.
Eve, are you okay? Eva, you all right?
I'm good, but this is what I'm saying. You see, you just told me they were locking arms. So why are they shooting at us if we were just locking arms?
Yeah. All right, Eve.
It's a rubber bullet. You're okay.
All right.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
All right. They're shooting rubber bullets.
Yeah, like what are we doing to them? You just showed us we were peacefully locking up.
All right, and they're just pushing. They're pushing that woman with the.
Are you okay, Adam? Baby, don't bend down your head.
See, you can see that woman. Looks like she's trying to get out of the way, or looks like I saw them pushing her. Eve, are you okay?
I'm okay.
Did you get the tear gas? Oh. Yep. Come on. Let's go this way. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Oh. All right.
Arms, and this is what happens to us.
I'm sorry.
This is what happens when we peacefully, like, I'm so glad you got it on camera just now, because this is what fucking happens with every single song. This is what happens when we come out. This is what happens when I start my country and come home. This is what happens every single time. We're standing there peacefully. What are we doing? Why can't they talk to us? Why do they gotta keep shooting at us and killing us? Like, what is this fix? Like, how can you go to other countries and tell them how to run theirs when you're not doing what you're supposed to do here? Like, we weren't doing anything. I hope this is live because they just saw. They're standing there with their arms locked. And you shoot at them for what? But they can have KKK rallies on the State House of Columbia, South Carolina, and nobody breaks that up. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand it. It just lit my face on fire.
How are you feeling right now?
Meanwhile, we have a Democratic nominee for president whose solution to police brutality is to train cops to, instead of shooting to kill, center mass, to simply aim for the leg. I've read things from both sides of the aisle who suggested that this is not exactly a smart idea. Joe Biden is the wrong man for the moment. Besides the fact that there's ample evidence that there is barely anybody at home upstairs, he has a 40-year record of being on the wrong side of every issue that might concern you. If you want progress on the issues of police brutality, or heck, any progressive ideas, Joe Biden is not really your ally. This is Joe Biden talking about the crime bill in 1994.
Doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter, or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must take it off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. I'm the guy that said, rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it, notice it, and even when we notice it, we know it occurs, we don't know why. So you cannot make rehabilitation a condition for release. That's why in our system, there's the federal system, you serve 85% of your time. It's a shame, but we don't know how to rehabilitate. But there is a consensus, and I will cease. A, we must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill, we have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. But we would be absolutely stupid as a society if we didn't recognize the condition that nurtured those folks still exist. And we must deal with that.
The 1994 crime bill, passed during the Bill Clinton presidency, led to the mass incarceration of the black community. Biden was a major proponent of the bill. In fact, he wrote quite a bit of it. Putting this man in charge now and expecting this to lead to better results is a little like putting an arsonist in charge of the fire department. But on the other side of the aisle, we have this man.
And we will succeed, 100%. We will succeed. Our country always wins. That is why I am taking immediate presidential action to stop the violence and restore security and safety in America. I am mobilizing all available federal resources, civilian and military, to stop the rioting and looting, to end the destruction and arson, and to protect the rights of law-abiding Americans, including your Second Amendment rights. Therefore, the following measures are going into effect immediately. First, we are ending the riots and lawlessness that has spread throughout our country. We will end it now. Today, I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them. I am also taking swift and decisive action to protect our great capital, Washington, D.C. What happened in this city last night was a total disgrace. As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers, military personnel, and law enforcement officers to stop the rioting, looting, vandalism, assaults, and the wanton destruction of property. We are putting everybody on warning. Our 7 o'clock curfew will be strictly enforced. Those who threaten innocent life and property will be arrested, detained, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I want the organizers of this terror to be on notice that you will face severe criminal penalties and lengthy sentences in jail. This includes Antifa and others who are leading instigators of this violence. One law and order, and that is what it is.
Oh
One
dear.
law. We have
The
one
only way that this statement would frighten me more is if he started cackling evilly and shooting lightning out of his hands. He literally proposed using the U.S. military on the American people under the guise of ending looting and rioting. Which, okay, if you're not in favor of looting and rioting, I don't blame you. But this would not end at looting and rioting. The military would also clear the street of the peaceful protesters. This is a flagrant violation of the First Amendment. Look, there are plenty of reasons to have supported Trump that don't involve being a racist. Maybe you're anti-establishment, as I am, and you thought that he would drain the swamp of corruption in Washington. Maybe you thought he would bring back the American jobs that have been shipped overseas. Maybe you're just a Republican, a conservative, a libertarianish Republican who believes in smaller government, and you were going to vote Republican no matter what. I think you're wrong on these issues, because Trump is every bit a part of the system as the rest of the people running our country. He is the symptom of a larger problem masquerading as the solution. But nevertheless, if this is what you believed, if this is what you still believe is going on, I can somewhat respect that. But if you support using the U.S. military and the American people to quell the protests under the guise of dealing with looting and rioting, then I strongly suspect that we don't have much in the way of ideological common ground. If you support the Second Amendment, if you're a big Second Amendment guy or girl, then you should also support the First Amendment, which this is a clear violation of. What we have here is two bad choices. Neither of the two major political parties are answerable to the American people. They are bought and paid for by the corporations, the same people who own our media. And yet, despite everything that I have said, there is still hope. Because it is clear that people are starting to wake up and see what's going on. Let's just hope that they stay awake.
Wherever we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them, we are the children. Mighty, mighty children. Here to tell you that Black Lives Matter.
Longer the Norwich NAACP president I was a couple of years back. The organization is still close to my heart. I am a resident of Norwich, a life member of the NAACP, and if you are not yet a member, what are you waiting for? Today. The more people we have, the more voices we have, the more impact we'll have. See, can I do this with one hand? I'm old school, I'm prepared. The title of my talk, and it's not going to be before you long. When the call chooses you, face everything and rise. Thank you. There's no thing that can be interpreted as positivity or negativity. May you live in interesting times. We are living in interesting times, deadly times, anger-inducing times, times that make us shake our heads in sadness or in anger, times that make us wonder what we're made of, and sometimes what the people we thought we knew are made of. Many of you may be wondering right now, what can I do? I'm only one person. We are all in this together. You heard that before, and it's still true today, but with a qualifier. We are not all acting from the same level of risk. Risk is real and relevant, because this reaction to my raising my voice, to my calling out injustice, to my asking those in my circle to take action can be very different than the reaction you might get. I speak out because I've been trained to do so. It's because it's my calling. I rise to this occasion because my spirit is calling me to do so. I do the work I'm assigned to do, and then I take a step further because my integrity and my commitment won't allow me to do any less. Your integrity, my integrity, our integrity is tested when our backs are against the wall, and they are. We are against the wall, and it's time to push back. It's not fun to be in difficult situations. They are not comfortable, but we must still rise to the occasion. Rising to the occasion may not be easy, but it must be done. Challenges we every person. Not just the ones I agree with, not just the ones I know personally, but every human being. Treating dignity is not easy. It may not always be fun, but it must be done. We must be willing to stretch, grow, take a chance, call some people out, and demonstrate what we believe in. Now don't get it twisted. Acting with integrity and treating everyone as if they possess that inherent worth and dignity does not mean you leave yourself open for violence or abuse. What would that say about your inherent worth and dignity? Face the temptation to discard that principle of inherent worth and dignity when you're facing someone who's spewing hatred and division, because that would be taking the easy way out. It would be taking the easy way out to remain silent, and it's hard to remain silent. You see this gray in my hair? I'm not a baby. I've been silent for your long. President, I also became prepared. I'm a little old school, so bear with me a little bit. So, first and foremost, good afternoon. And I'd like to say thank you to all the organizers. Tyler, Jamarly, D. Fox, Taylor Petro, Miss K, and the numerous other people that's involved in making everything opportunity that was made to happen for us by those people. Next, thank you for everyone that's came out today. Whether you're for or against the cause, it's meaningful that you're here, and I appreciate it. Another thank you shout out that I have to give, I'd like to thank all individuals who took me in as a kid and not looking to see my color, but saw a kid that wanted to make an impact in their community. Those few individuals include the Lorenzo family, Mama Vi, of the Violet family, Mama Shai, the Shadell family, Aunt Kathy of the Lawrence family, and Mama Oreo of the Arcarian family. Truly meant something. Alright, so I'm gonna take you on a little history trip real quick. Just to get a little background on myself, I moved to our beautiful town the summer of '05. To this day, I couldn't explain the culture shock of moving to rural Colchester from my suburban town in Philadelphia. Both my parents are pastors, have been my entire life. I'm no conservative, I'm no liberal. I'm an educated black man with an open mind. I've come up through the Colchester public school system from CIS, JJIS, WJ, Bacon, done seen it all, along with my 3 siblings. I'm a straight shooter, so I'm gonna be brutally honest. At first, I thought this protest wasn't the greatest of ideas. And you may look at me like, wow, crazy, but let me explain. Because the protests around the country that we see today are about police brutality. And according to my knowledge, that hasn't been the case in our town. However, police brutality is just one branch under this tree of racism that has its roots embedded within the foundation of our country, including our town. So, this protest is against racism, which I was still discouraged about because I believe nothing would change the view of those with hatred in their hearts. So, my final thank you to my best friend Aaron, my good friend Emma Cyber, my girlfriend Courtney Luss, for reminding me of all we've done in Colchester, like bringing the town together for exciting basketball games, running camps, repping rec leagues. And why not give back to the community? Why not give back for the younger black kids that are coming up in our beautiful town and show them that them too can be something special? So, let me take you back to my 4th grade year, my first time moving to Colchester. I got in detention and I was sent to the office for shooting a rubber band into the bucket. Now, you know, back into the day, we used to make little guns and shoot it. I literally shot it into the bucket. My white classmate was doing the same thing, yet he did not get a detention, nor was he sent to the office. So I had just moved here. I didn't want to tell my parents, oh, dang, I just moved here and I'm already getting a detention and sent to the office. So out of fear in my heart, I refrained from telling my parents and just kept it bottled up inside of me.
fast forward to 5th grade, the next year, a substitute teacher was discussing something to the class where she said, and I quote, "Usually in our society, white represents good and black represents evil." And it was at this time she looked directly at me in my eye. Now I understand you could sit here and think that, yeah, she was just gazing the classroom, but she looked at me when she said that, for what? Now, I understand it could have just been, some random moment of coincidence, but for me, it wasn't like that. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how to contend with the feelings that I was feeling. I was confused that a teacher could and would say that and then look at me. But no one could ever teach me how to deal with those feelings. No one could ever teach me how to deal with those emotions. So I grew a habit of bottling those up and batting a blind eye to it. Now fast forward to high school, where people would hesitate to say the N-word, yet was encouraged to say it for the sake of literature. So, as people would say that word while reading To Kill a Mockingbird, the hair on the back of my neck would raise, and I'd see almost every eye in the classroom look at me in my peripheral. My father, born in Alabama, raised me to believe that that word is a direct defamation of black people. However, that habit of bottling up known injustices and frankly disrespect towards me was my norm, so again, I batted a blind eye. Every day for 12 years, I recited the Pledge of Allegiance. But due to actions such as Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, do some research if you don't know their names, Tamir Rice, Botham Jeans, and most recently George Floyd, that allegiance that I was pledging to was systematic racism, oppression, and inequality for black people. It seemed as if that allegiance wasn't pledged back by the government. Definitely not liberty and justice for all. The system must change. So, most of you here have no idea what I mean when it says, I live in fear of the police. Most recently, my mother's been checking in on me every time I drive my car about random stuff, such as a blown taillight, such as my registration not expired, making sure I wear my seatbelt. And I was always one to believe that those things we saw in the news could never happen here, not in Colchester, until I started hearing random places like Ferguson, Missouri, like Sanford, Florida. It was then in my mind, I was like, no doubt in my mind, Colchester, Connecticut couldn't be the next place. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm never one to say F12. I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. I'd be lying, though, if I said that same energy was reciprocated to other black folk in our community, including my father. In regards to fear, I would just like to ask, what is so scary about my skin color? What makes my darker skin so scary? Because I sag my pants a little bit? Is it because my arms are a little longer? My hairs are a little curlier than my white counterparts? I get dressed, I tie my shoes, I brush my teeth, hopefully, the same way you do. We live in a society where we profile, stereotype, and judge people, and become ignorantly manipulated by our own assumptions. And I'm not saying I'm perfect because I've done it too. I'm just here to say that that's not right. It's because of this fear and lack of justice against the murderers in our country why myself and the black community has come to believe that our lives have not been valued in accordance to our white counterparts. We don't say Black Lives Matter to denounce the value of other lives. Because white lives matter, Asian lives matter, shoot, all lives matter. That's damn right. But here today and in these times, we say Black Lives Matter as a reminder to our people. Because since we are constantly shown that they are not valued to that same degree by some other people. So please don't get offended when we say Black Lives Matter. Whenever you see me raise a fist, I promise you, I am not a part of the Black Panther Party. I raise this fist because I raise this fist for justice. And that's all I'm going to stand for. Appreciate it. Wrapping up, I promise. I'm torn on the inside. I'm heartbroken. My heart is literally split into two. peacefully protest as he did. But on the other hand, my heart aches. I'm traumatized. And this anger in my heart is covered by sadness. In the words of St. Augustine, an unjust law is no law at all. Which means I have a right, even a duty, to resist with violence or civil disobedience. You should pray I choose the latter. Now, please understand, I do not condone violence in any sort of way. I have no intention on looting or rioting CVS, Noel's, none of that. I don't think that stuff is right, personally. But I do understand that there's imperfect people in the world acting out of anger, sadness, as a result of 200 years plus of oppression, systematic racism, pain, and traumatizing acts that can never be given back. Abraham Lincoln said, "The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is anew, we must think anew and act anew. We must decentral ourselves, and then we shall save our country." So understand this is personal for me. When I see a young black kid die, I think of that being my future son or my little brother, in which I am robbed of my future and my legacy. When I see an older black man die, I think of that being my father, in which I'm robbed of my history. So I'd like for you to take a second to imagine, what if it was your child that was gunned down? What if your father was George Floyd? What if it was your brother that was broken into your apartment and then killed by accident, but then no conviction being made? You'll never understand how I feel, and that's okay. But by you trying to put yourself in my shoes, you'll get a taste of what it feels like. Unity begins with you and I. I'll say it again. Unity begins with you and I. So we must come together in order to prevail. We must come together in order to prevail. We can never finish the race if we don't choose to start. I leave you with a quote of W.E.B. Du Bois. Either America will destroy...
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can we just have another round of applause for Mr. Isaiah Stewart? It is absolutely beautiful to see all of you here today in one place. I just want to say thank you to all of you who took part in organizing this, for allowing the fire inside of you to ignite and allowing your leadership to rise up for this community. So I'm an educator, I teach mathematics. I want to start this off with some statistics. So give me a show of hands. Raise your hand if you have ever been called a racial slur. Look around. Now raise your hand if you have ever been denied of an opportunity because of your skin color. Again, keep looking around. Raise your hand if you have ever had someone grab their bag a little bit tighter when you walked by. Raise your hand if you have ever had someone follow you in a store with obvious suspicion when you were doing nothing but shopping. Raise your hand if you have ever been asked to speak on behalf of all of the people who make up your racial group. Raise your hand if you have ever been stopped by the police for no apparent reason at all. Raise your hand if you have ever had your parents teach you what to do when you get pulled over by a cop just to avoid being viewed as a threat. And raise your hand if you have ever feared for your life when you were pulled over or approached by a cop. This is privilege. Those examples that a lot of you did not just raise your hands for exemplify just a tiny fraction of the ways that we experience privilege on a day-to-day basis. I'm speaking as a non-black person that a lot of you in this crowd and in this community can relate to for that fact alone. We will never know what it feels like to walk in the shoes of a Black individual. We will never know the pain in their hearts every time another one of their brothers or sisters is murdered by law enforcement. We will never know the fear that they experience when they encounter those who are supposed to be our protectors. But that does not mean that we cannot stand with them and fight for them. It is not okay to only stand for things that directly affect you. It is not okay to support leaders just because their bad decisions don't impact your life. So when the media quiets down again, and I think we can all agree that it already is, when the hashtags end, when it's no longer trendy to go to a protest and post your protest pic, I want you to remember that this is happening every single day. This oppression is happening even if it's not affecting you, even if you're not hearing about it. So don't stop using your voice behind closed doors. You do not have to be a product of the people around you. Speak up to your family members. Speak up to your friends. Speak up to your co-workers. And speak up to anyone who is not living by the values that we are representing today. Sometimes loving people means not telling them what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. Hearing you and listening to your words, I encourage you to go for it. You were born with a voice, so use it to speak life and to enlighten one another. Every single person here under the sound of my voice is beyond valuable. You are all full of purpose and full of life, and you all matter. However, we are here today for one reason alone, because Black lives matter. Too long. All lives will never matter until we can all come in agreement on the fact that Black lives matter. In closing, with no voices, there will be no change. If there is no change, we will find no justice. And with no justice, there will be no peace. Thank you.
Jamila and Cole.
We love you, Jamila!
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you for coming. I didn't expect this. This is amazing. So I'm just going to start off by letting you guys know what it's like to be Black in America. So my brother and I were walking home from school when a man called us a nigger. That was in 2015. My sister was walking home from school, and someone driving by rolled down the window and yelled at her and called her a nigger. And she ran home the rest of the way because she was scared for her life. That was in 2016.
Here in Colchester.
Yup, on Norwich Ave. My mom was followed by a cop for 15 minutes while dropping my brother off to daycare. And she was scared that she would never get the opportunity to pick him up again. That was in 2020. At a UConn basketball game, a man looked me in my eyes and called me a nigger because I was sitting down. That's what it's like to be Black in America. God made us all the same, but what makes you different than me? Why is the color of my skin more than enough evidence for me to be proven guilty?
America. Being black in America is to go on a run and never make it back home. Being black in America is to be sleeping peacefully in your bed and being shot 8 times. Being black in America is having a tail light out, and the cost of it is your life. That's why we're here. That is why we're protesting. So that they get the chance to make it back home after a run. So they get the chance to wake up the next morning.
Bracket, can you hear me? Yeah. Back. I'm just gonna pray real quick. So if you don't want to join, that's fine. But if you do, just bow your head, all right? Dear Lord, bless us. Bless everyone who put this together. Bless everyone who's here. Bless all the people who've been affected and been affected for a long time. Bless the people who did wrong. Bless those cops. I pray over the racists. Let something get to their head. Let them change. Something needs to change. So, Lord, just bless us with strength, power, words, a voice. Because we won't stop. We won't stop till this world is changed. We won't stop till our throats burn, their ears go deaf, and there's a change. All right? Dear Lord, thank you. Amen. How y'all doing out there? Some energy. We're gonna do some more chants, alright? Let's go. Said no justice! No peace! Said no justice! No peace! Said no justice! No peace! Say his name! George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd! One more time, say his name! George Floyd! Yes, hold up those signs.
To recognize our privilege and condemn it. We need to use it for something good. Use it to uplift and protect others. It is very important we know our place in this movement. It is not our job to be destructive. It is our job to protect our black brothers and sisters from destruction. It is not our job to preach. It is our job to listen. It is not our job to speak over those who are speaking. It is our job to amplify their voices. We must be anti-racist. It is not an excuse anymore to not be educated. We must educate ourselves and grasp at any opportunity to educate others. There is no excuse to tolerate racism in our community. We need to educate others. We need to have productive conversations. We need to face the uncomfortable conversations head on. We need to understand what systemic racism is. We need to call it by its name and face whenever we are a witness to it. We stand stronger when we stand in unity. This right here, this is about the herd. This is about humanity. This is about harmony. And what's going on in America is not harmony. It is the systemic discrimination, and we have to fight. We can't back down anymore. This is only the beginning. We cannot stand for our pledge and say liberty and justice for all when our black brothers and sisters have walked in fear every single day since the birth of this country. Remember, none of us are free until all of us are free. And all lives can't matter until black lives matter. Birthday. She would have been 27 years old today. There is a small memorial by the Waters and Gatorades if anybody would like to pay their respects. Thank you.
I have a lot of close friends of mine that are hurting, and I want to show my support for them. And no matter who I have as friends, they all have opposing views or what have you. Like, the one premise is that nobody wants anything bad to happen to good people. And I think that is just what'll get some change going. And it starts in your community. I could post, I could say something about something that's happening in another state, but it's not going to change like the nation as a whole. And so I think just coming out in your own community is like where the change starts,
The American slave trade began in 1619. The total population, when all was said and done, of the enslaved people was around 4 million people. The Civil War began on April 12th, 1861, when the South tried to extend the slave trade to the new Western territories. In the third year of the Civil War, on January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation that declared that all people that were held as slaves within the rebellious territories were now free. In 1865, the Civil War came to an end. In the aftermath of the Civil War, during Reconstruction of the South passed laws to keep former slaves as close to slavery as they could be. They limited their economic mobility. Technically, they had the right to vote, but there were some restrictions in place, such as needing to pass a reading test, and many of the former slaves could not read. Those who attempted to vote were met with intimidation tactics to prevent them from doing so. In 1880, the Jim Crow laws went into effect, and the concept of separate but equal began. Separate water fountains, separate eating establishments, separate schools, so on and so forth. There are no living slaves from the Civil War era, but there are certainly plenty of people alive today who remember separate but equal and segregation. The Jim Crow laws continued until the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1968, passed by Lyndon Johnson under the pressure of Martin Luther King and others. Many people believe that this is where racism ended, but it wasn't. There are many effects of the old system still in place. The ghettos of America, which still exist to this day, is the result of active governmental policy. School systems are funded by property taxes. The property taxes in poor neighborhoods, such as the ghetto, are much lower. And it is illegal to go to schools outside of your district. Why do you suppose it's set up like that? This isn't just a means to keep the black man down. It is to keep the general poor person down, regardless of the color of the person's skin. Because you see, we do not just have a race problem in this country. We have a class problem. And that is exactly why, if you are not rich, that we should be joining forces with those that are doing the protesting. They are our allies. And that is the last thing that the powers that be want. They don't want us joining forces against them. And they will do whatever they can to keep that from happening. And that means dividing us as much as possible. As I've already stated, in 1994, the crime bill was passed. Under the Bill Clinton presidency and heavily supported by Joe Biden, it led to the mass incarceration of the black community, many for non-violent drug crimes. There is an extensive prison labor system, free labor. And what happens when you go to prison? You lose the right to vote, and your economic possibilities are greatly and severely limited. One could make the argument, and plenty have, that this is slavery, just in another name.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kiana Bartsu. I'm organizing the peaceful protest in East Hampton. The reason why I had this protest because, living in this town, I have experienced quite a bit of racism, and I just thought that this would be a good way to bring people together and to show that, people all are standing for the same cause, and even though there's some people against it. Maybe seeing everyone come together in the town will bring another form of unity and let people have a kinder heart. So that's why I organized this protest.
I grew up here in East Hampton, and I went to school for criminal justice. So the most important part for me about Black Lives Matter is making sure that our children are educated to provide better.
You guys did such a good job. Thanks, Maddie.
I'm new to this. So I want to thank you guys all for coming out over the past 2 weeks. It's been pretty difficult reading the hate, but with everybody's support, it's caused me to keep going. I figured that this would be a good protest to, even though there's a lot of hate in the town, if people see that a lot of people are coming together for the same cause, it'll give people a kinder heart. And my hope from this is that another family of a different race or culture that comes here won't experience the things that I have felt, and I just want to make it better for them. And I would like to thank Officer Wasner for helping me out and being so supportive during this time. And I also like to thank the superintendent of East Hampton Schools for giving us extra parking, because I know a lot of people are worried about that. I didn't want to let any of you down today, so, there's been a couple of times where I have thought, maybe I should not do the protest because there's been so much backlash, but I'm not one to give up on things. My parents... My parents weren't born here. My mom's from Jamaica and my dad's from Africa. And I made a promise to myself at a young age that everything I do, I'll make sure that they didn't come here for nothing. It means to me, and I hope after this that the town will change a little bit. And we have Matt, right? I don't know if I pronounced the last name right. Okay, he's gonna say some words too about his experience in East Hampton.
Yeah. Gotta get used to that. Thank you, Kiana. This is because of you that everyone here and I want to thank you for inviting me into this space you have organized to say some words. I want to start by saying first and foremost that I am here to listen, to stand in solidarity, and add my voice in speaking out to say that Black Lives Matter. I was outraged and saddened watching George Floyd beg for his life as a police officer pinned his knee on his neck. I am here to take part in today's demonstration for Tamir Rice, for Sandra Bland, Philando Castile, Breonna Taylor, and all other victims of police brutality and racism. Also, I have to say again, Kiana, you made this demonstration happen. You spoke out, you shared your story because of your determination that we as a town have tough conversations and that people speak up when they see a family in town be judged or discriminated against. Your strength and determination pushed me to speak about racial intolerance and bias in my own life that I have struggled to talk about, wanted to forget, or not share with anyone except for a few people. It is time for us to end the silence, speak up, and call out racial bias when we see it. Today, I'm speaking up. I grew up in this town and continue to reside in it. I have a lot of memories in East Hampton, but I'd be lying to say being one of the few Latinos in this town didn't come with challenges. and the racial bias I've experienced has impacted how I look at this town that I have grown up in. When you are in the 8th grade and another student says in front of the class that they want to see your green card, or when at a social event in East Hampton, and the first thing someone says to you is asking if you are a foreign exchange student, those comments leave emotional scars that do not go away. It is comments like this that last for many years after. But it is not just those comments that people say that last. It is when the people around you remain silent. When only one student speaks up to say that the comments are wrong, while the other students act like they didn't hear it, or just watch from their desk. When the people sitting at the table at the event remain silent, and the only person to speak up is the spouse, not to say her husband's words were wrong, but because she was embarrassed for herself. These experiences are only a couple examples of racism and bias I have experienced in my life. And I want to underscore that my experiences are not the only ones. We must listen to other people's stories and learn what we can do to address racism in everyday life and broader inequalities. I am here to speak out, and I am pleased to see all of you doing the same as well. But it cannot just be today, it has to be each day going forward. I know it can be hard to speak up or have a tough conversation with someone when they are your friend, family, or coworker. Sometimes we will fail, but what matters is we tried, and do not back down from the next time. We must acknowledge when we act in the wrong manner, learn how we can do better, and work to make up for when we are wrong. We have to do this, because I do not want another young black girl, another brown boy, or any other person to feel marginalized or isolated simply because of their race, ethnicity, or any other factor. Thank you, Kiana, for inviting me into this space you have organized to speak, and I look forward to marching with all of you today.
So we just have to wait a couple minutes because Officer Wasner is going to make sure that traffic is good on the street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
is violence! No justice! No justice! No justice! No justice! No racist! No racist! No racist! No racist! Black Lives Matter! Say it, people! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black
George Floyd! George Floyd! Breonna Taylor! Breonna Taylor! Tamir Rice! Tamir Rice! Michael Brown! Michael Brown! Freddie Gray! Freddie Gray! Sandra Bland! Sandra Bland! Eric Gardner! Eric Gardner! Walter Scott! Walter Scott! Laquan McDonald! Laquan McDonald! Delano Castile! Delano Castile! Jordan Edwards! Jordan Edwards! Malcolm Jean! Malcolm Jean! Pamela Turner! Pamela Turner! Kendrick Johnson! Kendrick Johnson! Ahmaud Arbery! Ahmaud Arbery! Trayvon Martin! Trayvon Martin!
Too many minutes!
Too many more! Black Lives Matter! 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 Black Lives Matter!
Think for a moment about the worst thing that has ever happened to you. If that thought will cause you undue mental health problems, then just think of something else. Imagine that you decide to tell somebody your story. And in response, that person tells you, "That doesn't happen." Imagine how that makes you feel. Your feelings and experiences have just been invalidated by said person. Does it make you upset? Does it make you angry? Well, that very scenario is happening to many within the black community. They are telling their stories. And in response, they are hearing that that does not happen. Police brutality doesn't happen. Racism doesn't exist. How do you think that makes them feel? Angry, perhaps? Like they don't have a voice? Like no one is listening? Being the mental health awareness advocate, I am familiar with this very tendency of people to ignore the experiences of others that doesn't conform to their own experience. I ask you to put yourself in one of these people's shoes and imagine being a parent and sending off your kids into the big bad world and being absolutely terrified that they won't come home that night. As parents, we have that fear anyway. But it is doubly so when we are talking about a member of the black community. And I will tell you this. If my child were murdered unjustly by the police, I guarantee that I would burn down entire cities. My anger would have no bounds. And I would not be very moved by the argument that not all police officers are bad. Even though I mostly believe that to be true. But the system that they are operating in, for the most part, is very bad, and it needs to be changed. It needs to be reformed. I don't know the solution to all these problems, but I do know that any solution begins with empathy and understanding and an open dialogue. We need to be able to talk to each other, and we need to be able to listen. There are many people now who are telling you their stories, and we cannot dismiss all these people. We sweep these problems under the rug at our own peril. If we don't make any meaningful change now, what we're seeing now will look like a cakewalk in the future. The system is corrupt from top to bottom. And this affects us all, which is exactly why we need to keep aligning ourselves with the black community if we are not in the millionaire class. Regardless of who wins the election, we will not have an ally in the White House. We need to keep up the pressure. If you are supporting the movement now, then you need to continue to do so. It does no one any good if you're only here on a temporary basis. If you're attending protests and speaking up now, only to grow bored and move on to the next thing. The newest outrage, as I've seen far too often. As a mental health awareness advocate, people will talk about something only when something bad has happened. And we cannot continue to do that if we hope to effect any meaningful change. I'm hoping we won't waste this moment. I'm hoping that the only achievement we get out of this isn't just taking down statues and changing syrup bottles. That is not enough. Maybe one day, the people in these communities can send their children out into the world and not be utterly terrified that they won't come home safely. For that is our truly where our privilege lies. And it is a privilege that should be enjoyed by all. And remember, with no justice, there will be no peace.
Who? So that guy with the dog?
Yeah.
Like, does he have some sort of? No.
I'm sorry, I could not. Yeah,
Because Batman?
Yes.
You better feature Batman.
Because I'm Batman.
Where is he? This is gonna be the front of your thing, the cover photo, if you will.